Why is the fact that each of us comes from a culture with its own distinctive mix of strengths and weaknesses, tendencies and predispositions, so difficult to acknowledge? Who we are cannot be separated from where we are from. And when we ignore that fact, planes crash. Malcolm Gladwell. Have you ever noticed how some cultures seem more comfortable questioning authority than others? This difference might have a greater impact on our lives than you think, especially when you're 35,000 feet in the air. In this video, I will discuss how cultural power distance, a concept that influences hierarchy and communication, affects aviation safety. We'll review the importance of crew resource management, examine findings from Malcolm Gladwell's book Outliers, studies like Culture and Plane Crashes by Enomoto and Geisler, and the insights of NASA's Michael Engel. By the end, you'll see how understanding culture might help save lives. Cultural power distance, a concept defined by social psychologist Gert Hofstede, measures the extent in which members of a culture expect and accept that power is unequally distributed. In other words, how much a particular culture values and respects authority. In high power distance cultures, hierarchies are rigid and questioning authority is often seen as disrespectful. In countries like Korea, Malaysia, or China, subordinates are less likely to challenge authority or voice concerns. In contrast, low power distant cultures like the United States, Australia, or Northern Europe tend to be more open, where challenging superiors is more accepted and even encouraged. While these traits shape everyday interactions, they become especially critical in high stakes settings like aviation. To reduce the risk of human error in aviation, a concept called crew resource management, or CRM, was developed in the 1970s. CRM focuses on effective communication, decision-making, and teamwork among cockpit crew members. It ensures that all available resources, equipment, and people are used to ensure the safety of a flight. Every major airline has CRM training for their pilots. CRM is vital because aviation is inherently collaborative. Captains, co-pilots, and air traffic controllers must communicate clearly, especially in emergencies. Air traffic controllers are often in high information load situations and are strictly low context communicators, meaning pilots should be brief, clear, and to the point when talking with aircraft controllers. The same is true for communication between the pilot and co-pilot. There can be no expectation that the listener can or will decode any implied meaning of a statement. It is the speaker's responsibility to make sure the meaning of his or her statement is clear. However, the success of CRM depends on the willingness of all team members to speak up and actively engage when there's an issue, something that cultural values like power distance can heavily influence. In high power distance cultures, respect for authority often suppresses the voices of subordinates. In the cockpit, this means that the first officers, co-pilots, might hesitate to correct a captain's mistake even in life-threatening situations. Malcolm Gladwell highlights this dynamic in his book Outliers. He describes how cultural communication styles contributed to crashes, such as that of Korean Air Flight 801 in 1997. That crash, Gladwell argues, was partially due to a co-pilot and flight engineer failing to assertively communicate critical concerns to the captain. In the case of Flight 801, the flight engineer said to the captain, "The weather radar has helped us a lot," instead of saying what he should have said, which was, "Look at what the weather radar is telling us. There's trouble ahead." His statement did not indicate the urgency of the situation. The captain of that flight did not have the capacity at that time to decode what was implied. These indirect communication patterns can create deadly misunderstandings. The study by Enomoto and Geisler in 2017 builds on Gladwell's hypothesis. By examining international aviation safety data, they investigated the relationship between cultural power distance and plane crashes. Their findings? There is indeed a correlation between high power distance and higher crash rates. In high power distance cultures, hierarchical communication styles can hinder effective CRM. Subordinates may be reluctant to challenge authority even when they recognize an error. Gladwell points out that planes are safer when the first officer is flying the plane because it means that the captain isn't going to be afraid to speak up if there is an issue. The researchers emphasize that this isn't about blaming specific cultures, but understanding how cultural values affect behavior. Importantly, They noted that as airlines implement CRM training tailored to their cultural context, these risks can be mitigated. This brings us to Michael Engel's article, Culture in the Cockpit: CRM in a Multicultural World. In it, Engel emphasizes the need for CRM programs to account for cultural differences. Rather than enforcing a one size fits all approach, effective CRM training should adapt to cultural realities. For example, in high power distance cultures, training might focus on empowering subordinates to communicate assertively and provide captains with tools to encourage open dialogue. In multicultural crews, understanding each team member's cultural background can improve collaboration. By tailoring CRM training, airlines can bridge the gap between hierarchical tendencies and the need for assertive, clear communication. So, what's the takeaway? Understanding culture isn't just an academic exercise, it has real world implications for safety. Cultural power distance affects how crews communicate and make decisions in high pressure situations. By acknowledging these differences and adapting CRM practices accordingly, airlines can reduce misunderstandings and improve safety outcomes. As passengers, we can also play a role by choosing airlines that prioritize advanced CRM training and learning about the culture of the countries we fly with. Thank you for joining me today. May you have blue skies ahead.